Hi everyone, this is Mari Craig, and you're listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show, a podcast where we discuss how we can achieve more wellness in our lives one small step at a time. For the past 6 odd years, I've taken a special interest in nutrition and I've changed the diet of my family on its head. But as I've dived deeper into the world of nutrition, I have learned that health is so much more than just what we put on our plate. This is why on this podcast we will be talking nutrition, mental health, being in alignment, holistic health care, self care, raising children, and more. We will also be hearing stories of women's journeys to overcome trauma and what it has taught them on the way. When we share our stories, we realize we are not alone and that things can change for the better. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey as I explore what health and wellness truly encompass. If you like what you're hearing, please consider rating the show with a 5-star rating and sharing it with your friends. It really makes a big difference. Now, on with today's show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Small Steps to Wellness show with me, your host, Mari Craig, where we're discussing how we can achieve more wellness in our lives, one small step at a time. Now, today, I have a woman on who a lot of my friends have said that I need to ask to be on this podcast, and her name is Natalie Costa, and she's a woman that I've been following on Instagram for a while. And this is funny, whenever I share any of her posts with my friends, they always comment on her ability to almost see their child as if she knows them. And currently my eldest daughter and I are going through one of her courses in how to manage big feelings. And it is truly making us think about how we react to things, and it's helping us put words on where we feel our feelings when they get overwhelming. And during the first video, we haven't finished the course yet, but both my daughter and I sat nodding because it was as though Natalie was speaking about my daughter. She was so spot on with so much. And it made us both feel less alone in our feelings, because clearly other children are feeling very similar to us. And now Natalie's got over 10 years experience in teaching and education. She's so familiar with all the struggles, pressures, demands that both teachers and children face, and I think adults as well, growing up as parents. Now, Power Thoughts, which is Natalie's company, is a teaching, coaching, and mindfulness-based service, which is aimed at empowering children to tap into the power of their minds. And through the sessions, the children are taught how to become confident, resilient, and robust, and developing a can-do attitude, which I think is great, that allows them to flourish both in and out of the classroom setting. I'm so excited to have you on. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you. I'm really, really looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for taking the time. You are such a busy woman. And so we just have to speak really fast.
No, it's all right. I've got more space now, so it's good. It's
fantastic.
Good.
Well, I asked, so I've got two children, age 9 and a half, nearly 7. And so I speak to a lot of parents in that sort of with children that age, and I asked them, what should I talk to Natalie about? And the thing that came up the most was confidence issues and friendship insecurities. So, for example, one parent said, my child thinks that if her mates don't stop and look at her and speak to her, they don't like her anymore, and somebody said, oh, how do I raise a resilient child that knows their own value and doesn't let others define their worth, and all of these things. So there seems to be a lot of that going on at the moment. What is your experience as a teacher, first and foremost, of those issues? Did you teach that year group?
So I taught all year groups. I started as I was a year 1 teacher for a long time, and then I moved about. So I was in nursery reception, year 2, year 3, all the way up to year 6. And definitely, I think what you're saying now is something I see a lot in the private practice that I do with my work. So obviously, but also even as a teacher, friendship challenges, friendship wobbles, children falling out, the stories we create in our mind about what we think other people think of us, the assumptions that we make, and all of those things. One of the things that sparked Power Thoughts actually to be started was, well, I said that grammatically wrong, but you know what I mean, how it started is, grammar, I clearly don't teach grammar, is so many of the children I was working with were really afraid of making mistakes, afraid of getting things wrong, afraid of messing up, and that held them back. I think when I put Powerhouse together, I put a survey together to see what were children struggling with, and I gave that out to the kids in the school from year 2 to year 6, and over 92% of children said, I'm afraid of failure, I'm afraid of getting things wrong, I'm afraid of making mistakes. And I could see that as well as a teacher. And even when I was working with a group of year 6s, that initially really got me onto the track of Power Thoughts. They were preparing for their SATs exams that were coming up. They were preparing to go to secondary schools, so some of them had like school interviews. And one of the girls said to me, Miss, I'm never going to be successful in my life if I don't pass these SATs.
Wow.
And another girl was stuck in the toilet crying on the day of SATs. And then, one of the boys was in tears when we put the SATs paper down. And it was just this, it just made me think, why? So they're caught up in those negative stories, those limiting beliefs of why they're not good enough, that fear, that self-doubt, seeing their mistakes as a form of their self-worth. I've made a mistake in this, or I've got like a fail, I haven't passed this, therefore I'm not good enough. And it just dawned on me, why do we have to wait until our adult years to kind of unlearn some of this, that what I'd learned, through my coaching and therapy and all sorts of things, like actually I don't have to believe all the stories I tell myself, and also how can we teach our children to reframe those setbacks and really begin to embrace them as like, okay, do you know what, this is a sucky feeling, it doesn't feel good right now that I didn't pass this test, and maybe I need to cry, and maybe I need to kind of let it out, but okay, how can I then grow from this? How can this help me become better? How can I improve through these challenges, and rather see those setbacks as an opportunity to grow and learn? And obviously equally, friendships are also things that I see a lot of challenges in terms of being on the receiving end of unkind words, people being mean, people not liking me, how to navigate difficult friendships, standing up for myself. So I work a lot with children that are perhaps the not so assertive, and actually teaching them that it's okay to say, do you know what, that's not cool, don't talk to me like that. Because many of these times I find those particular children I support, they're like, oh, I can't be mean. It's been something about I can't be mean, but actually if someone's being unkind, it's okay to say, please, can you stop saying that? I don't want you to say that. It makes me feel. And, so understand, whilst it doesn't always get rid of the person, it's helping them find their voice, but also understanding, giving them an insight as to why do people behave the way that they do, which is such a big cause of conflict in friendships, in relations, even for adults. I mean, think of all the, misunderstandings that you've had with your partner or friends, is because we've got a different perspective about the situation. And of course, regardless, maybe one person stepped out of line or, reacted in a certain way, but we all have a perception based on this scenario. We don't always look at everything in the same way. And I think just helping children understand that even if someone is being mean or unkind to you, it doesn't make it right, but it's actually not about you. It's all about them. It's because they are not happy. They are feeling insecure. They are feeling jealous. It doesn't make it right that they're unkind, and there are certain things that we can do about that, but understand that it's actually got nothing to do with you. It's all about them. And so for me, it was all of these sort of things that would take place that made me think, well, again, we don't need to wait until our adult years to learn some of these tools and strategies on how I can start to take control of some of those thoughts and those stories, how I can start to reframe the things I tell myself. And we can start with children today, giving them those tools now versus much later on.
Yeah, and having to spend however much money trying to unlearn it all, hey?
Yeah.
This is another thing, because you were saying therapy and coaching and all the rest of it, to kind of unlearn some of the things that you kind of have been taught. It makes me, the whole SATs thing, it just baffles me a little bit, because as a teacher, you kind of know, also as a former teacher anyway, and I used to be a secondary school teacher in a previous life, that actually they don't mean much.
Oh no, I know.
And still we put so much value on it.
Oh, I know. I mean, I don't know. I think the whole schooling system needs a full revamp.
Yeah.
I totally understand. Look, education is absolutely important. It opens up doors, it opens up opportunities. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. But understanding that we learn in different ways. We acquire knowledge through different experiences. And I do feel, and yes, there's also an element, well, how do we know when it's ready to move on to that next level? So I totally appreciate that. You know, there is a space for, in my personal opinion, and, you know, I'm not an expert in education either. I was a teacher, but there are people that do a far better job in being experts in this field than me. But I do feel, yeah, okay, there is the point of, okay, well, how do we know when you're ready to move on in terms of where you're at and where that gap is, you know, if we're thinking about tests. But what do the stats really prove? And I don't want to go into this whole conversation, but what do they really, I just feel it, I just think in terms of where we're going as a world, in terms of technology, in terms of how things are being brought into this world, in terms of thinking. And granted, look, I think some of the schools that I work with do a fantastic job of so many new things are being brought in that I was like, oh, I wish I had this as a kid. Like, we'd never think of teaching our kid, and kids are smart, kids pick things up really quickly. But it's that mindset shift that this is just a little snapshot of me right now, 10 o'clock on a Monday morning when I'm doing my English paper. That's all it is. In 2022, when I'm 10 years or 11 years old, however old they are, this will not dictate my success for the rest of my life. And the challenge, however, is, I think, you know, we're talking about the biggest thing is in terms of, well, what schools do you get into and all that. And there is, I do understand there's a big pressure in terms of getting into the right school. And yes, certain schools open up more opportunities than other schools. But I always go back to kids and say, especially when they get stressed about not getting to school, there are many, 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 many routes to success. There's not just this linear pathway. And that's why it's so important to be able to share with your child different successful people. I mean, I use that word lightly because what is success? But different people that have achieved phenomenal things. But let's go back and see how their dots joined. And granted, their dots, they probably got to where they got to because it wasn't a straight path. And they had many failures and rejections and setbacks, and when things didn't work out and when they thought it wasn't going to happen for them. But despite all of that, they use that to help them move forward. And I think we can get so caught up in this world of, well, what school, da, da, da. But if you think now, fast forward to where your life is, how irrelevant some of those things really were. And what I mean is that they're all important. They all are important. Don't get me wrong. They all are important. But I think it's just understanding, yeah, that there's many, many routes to success, and that your SATs mark, your score in your spelling test, even what school you get into, if you didn't get into the school that you wanted to, and that school's going to open up so many doors, that doesn't mean that you're not good enough. And the dots don't make sense now. And this is a hard thing because children as well, their brain and how their brains develop, they don't yet have that insight of being able to see things as rationally as what we do. But understanding that that my self-worth isn't attached to those external things. And I do think, I think definitely some things could we do things in a different way?
Yeah,
I think
that's very, very diplomatically said, I have to say. No, but I think you're so right, and I also do wonder where it comes from. Like, are we as parents putting pressure on our children because we want them to succeed for them, or we want them to succeed because then we can go, oh, my child has done X, Y, Z. There's a lot of, and I don't have the answers to that, but it's certainly worth bearing in mind. Like, why are we worried about these things for our children?
Yeah, and I think, look, of course, as a parent, you want your child to be happy, you want them to be successful, you want them to have all of the things that you didn't have, all those opportunities. And yeah, sometimes I do see parents put a lot of pressure on their kids, which is, we need to take a look in the mirror and see, actually, where does this come from? And in some cases, it can be from, having a real honest look of, well, I never had that, and trying to live through our child, which is completely, I think more of these conversations need to be had because it's a normal thing that happens and there's no shame in that, but it's recognizing that actually, and this is the other thing with being a parent, nothing prepares you for this. There is no manual, no rule book, no guide, no university, you are just as much of a learner as is your child. And so understanding you're not going to get it right all the time. You are going to mess up. You're going to mess up royally, right? But nothing is irreparable. Like, I think the beauty comes in recognizing, actually, I didn't deal with that in the best way. How can I grow from this? And how can I learn from this and repair that, you know? And if it is about apologizing to your child, apologize. Like, that's magic right there, because you are a human being and we're never going to get things right. And what works for one child is not going to work for another child. So you're always back at square one. I think you're always back at square one. And that's okay. And that's where the self-compassion is so important. And I think just recognizing, I think it's just recognizing it. And it's our society too. We live in a very success orientated culture and society. Even if we look at the working sector, you know, it is very much driven on the external factors, you know. And I think so it's the society as a whole is, and it's been like that for a long time. So there's a lot of factors here at play.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You know,
yeah, no, I see that. And I see, as you said, like, what is it with us as parents? There's something that we didn't have, so we want to make it better. Do you know what, about apologizing to your child, that is an interesting one, because I'm not sure a lot of us have had that model too as children, because and I don't know if it was you that said it on in a post I saw a while ago or somebody else, but we grew up where also you just listen to your parents and that's it, and they will not necessarily say, oh, I got it wrong. So we haven't exactly learned that. But I've said to my eldest daughter, I said, look, I wasn't a parent before I had you, so you're teaching me sometimes and I might not get it right. So this is a joint thing that we're doing together. I said it's almost easier to raise your younger sister because I've done it once with you already, because you kind of taught me.
Yeah, and I think, you know, definitely you hit the nail on the head. I'm just thinking, you know, of course my parents have apologized to me, maybe, but not so much when I was younger. I can definitely now remember, now that I'm older. But I mean, they did the best they could. I'm not finger pointing at all.
Well, absolutely not. No. Yeah.
But the thing was, if you think about it, you know, parenting has changed so much over the generations. That phrase of children are to be seen and not heard, that very authoritarian style of parenting that I think many of the parents that I work with can, you know, we've chatted about, like, we can really relate to. And so this whole concept, and even teachers would never apologize to me. So this whole concept of apologizing can maybe feel quite alien, but I think, why wouldn't you? Because you're not perfect. None of us are perfect. And through apologizing, if we expect our children to apologize, but we're not modeling that, because you will mess up. You are going to shout at your child and you're like, oh my God, I really shouldn't have done that. Oh my God, you know, I've destroyed them for life. You haven't. But let's go back and apologize and say, do you know what? Mummy, you know, I teach the language of flipping the lid from Dr. Daniel Siegel. Mummy flipped a lid there and I'm really sorry. I think under my big feeling, I was feeling tired, I was feeling disappointed, and I took it out on you, and I'm really, really sorry. That in itself, you're letting them know, building the emotional awareness, you're letting them know that actually it's not about them, it's about you, okay? Because I think that's really important. Children, when things go wrong, they do, you know, they're very self-centered, will think, well, is it my fault? Is it my fault mummy's upset? Is it my fault they're fighting? Is it my fault? So you're explaining, it's not about you. This is mummy. Mummy was disappointed because of, I don't know, didn't get the email I wanted, or it's not about you. This is mummy's feeling. But you're modeling there, and you are showing them as well how to, you know, go back and apologize when they get things wrong. And you're showing self-compassion for yourself, which is so key. Who models self-compassion? I think that's such a key thing that we miss out on. And you're also deepening that connection.
Yeah, I think you're right then, and letting them also see that mommy is human or daddy is human, and it's all it's fine to do these things. But I think that kind of leads me on a little bit to what I was asked to ask you about friendship issues, and just and being able to, I guess, be emotionally self-aware, so that you can recognize, as you said earlier, when things don't go right in friendships, because this age now, let's say age 9 onwards, is quite can be quite turbulent, and maybe having enough self-awareness you know, around your own emotions can be a good place to start to deal with friendship issues. I don't know, what do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think always being self-aware is huge when it comes to relationships. We don't function in isolation. We function when we are relating and connecting to others. And I think it's about recognizing how to work through some of those difficult feelings when they come up, because they will come up. We're not going to be liked by everyone. We're not going to be accepted by everyone. And that hurts and that stings. But also being okay with that. And also then, other factors when it comes with friendships, of standing up for myself, I don't like the concept of having a best friend. I think there's a lot of pressure to have a best friend. And I know that, I grew up having a best friend, but actually if I could go back now and have these tools, it would be actually understanding it's okay not to have a best friend, because that best friend carries a lot of weight in terms of they've got to be all these things for you. And whereas if we can start to think of friendships like ice cream flavors, how boring would the world be with just like salted caramel? We want more flavors. And actually we can have a friend that makes me laugh. We can have a friend that helps me be like really silly, but I can have a serious friend, and I can have a friend that listens to me, and I can have a friend that's got really great ideas. And so seeing all of these friends as having like little fragments of the things that I love in friendships, I think is a really healthy way to start going about it. Because and then also things just in terms of how to communicate with others, and understanding that people might not respond to things in the same way that I do, but that doesn't make them bad or make them different. And these are ongoing skills, because we also have to understand, that children's rational part of the brain is still developing, their forms of abstract thinking is still developing. So it is about helping guide them through all of these years into their adult years. But it's the basis of good communication, and how to communicate in self-compassion and empathy are those grounding blocks, when it comes to friendship.
Yeah, that's why I think maybe your course is the one that we're doing at the moment. It's good to do together, because I think as parents we just as much need it as our children, so that we can kind of talk about it with them, or we can model it and all of these things, because everything seems very black and white for it seems to me anyway, for children this age. It's like, this person is nice or this person isn't, end of.
Yeah, totally. And I think, there's what you said, there's so much power in that, doing these courses with your child. And that's actually something I really encourage parents to do, because when parents want to work with their children, of course, I do one-to-ones with children, and that's great, and they'll get a lot of value from that. There's so much more power when you actually do the content with your child. You fill in the worksheet and your child fills in the worksheet. You chat about your experience, they chat about their experience. So you start to really live through those processes too, and you've got those tools and strategies to support them during those difficult moments. And it's also also one of the other things that parents have said is that through doing this with their children, it's really opened up so many conversations that they didn't think they would have. They never thought of, just things came out that had happened at school. I remember one mom got in touch, is like, my son just opened up and said all these things that happened at school and I never knew, but it was really useful for us, and we were able to then go to the teacher and talk about things, and it just opened up that safe space to do so. But yeah, like I said, you're learning too. And again, who taught you as an adult how to navigate friendships, how to have relationships? I think that's another module we need to teach schools, is how to communicate, how to argue constructively, because arguing isn't not having arguments is healthy.
Yes.
It's just, how do we do that in a constructive way? So that whole conflict management thing, it doesn't mean that it's bad that now you've had a fallout with your friend. And this is something, I'm segueing here, but this is something that I noticed, as well, like in adult relationships, there's a lot of information there about, arguing with your spouse, arguing with your husband, but there's nothing really around the world of friendships. What I do if I have an argument with my friend, if you think about it, if you're with your husband, you have an argument, but not every argument is going to lead to, right, this is it, friendship fallouts. Yet we kind of do that with friends, I've noticed, like not all the time, but I have noticed that more quick to do that with friendships. And so I think, yeah, it's just ongoing skills in terms of communicating, how to manage conflict, how to deal with difficult scenarios, and all those emotions that come up with that.
Yeah. And I think also our children, I certainly, when I speak to my children, I think they assume that their friends wouldn't understand if they actually talk to them, or they're worried about what's going to happen if they tell them how they feel. And I said, you know what, I think, there's a lot of love between you and your friends. I think actually, if you said, this is how I feel, I think they'd positively surprise you and go, do you know what, that makes me sad, I'm sorry. So I think also we need to also show our children, I think, that, most of your friends, even if you have one fallout, it doesn't mean that that's the end of your friendship.
Exactly. That's the thing. And if a fallout in a friendship is just like, if I can equate it to, if you've got maths, right, and you're learning fractions in maths, you're going to make a mistake. You're going to get it wrong. You're not going to get the answer right. So, I mean, this is a really dumb example, but a fallout in, but you're going to learn from that mistake and be like, okay, I just put the number here. I need to multiply. I need to divide it. However, I mean, talk maths. I just go, but you're going to learn. I'm going to learn that. A fallout in a friendship is just like making a mistake in, what can I learn from this? What can I do differently? And sometimes it could be, actually, I don't like how that friend makes me feel. I don't like how they always talk down to me. I don't like how they belittle me. So actually, I need to move away from that. I need to start looking at making new friends or whatever. Or maybe it is, you know what, I made the wrong assumption. And, we got into, or maybe I hurt their feelings because I didn't think about them, or whatever that might be. So we can learn from that and become a better friend. And I think it's just looking at it in that way for what it is. This is just another opportunity to grow. And one of the things that I do teach children in terms of, we talk about the I messages, because often in friendships, we can resort to the you messages. You made me feel this. It's your fault. You did this. Therefore, it made me do this. So I'm putting the blame on you. Whereas if I say, I felt left out when you didn't include me in the game, and that made me feel sad. I'm telling you how I feel, or when I wasn't included in the game, so I felt left out when I wasn't included in the game, or when I wasn't asked to join your game, when I wasn't asked to play, and it made me feel sad. Doesn't mean your friends, doesn't mean that person's going to do what you want them to do. Like, I'll be honest with you, we can't control what they want to do, but you're letting them know how you feel. And like you said, if there is those friendships that does have the love and the respect and, those sort of friendships, well, then I said, that might be heard in a different way from that friend, in terms of, it's not your fault. This is how I feel. And I'm telling you how I feel. I mean, Brene Brown talks a lot about this, and I do use this line with the older kids, the story I'm telling myself is that I'm not important to you when you didn't call me after the game or whatever it is. That's a story I'm telling myself. So I often get, even, your 9-year-old to start using that. And I think that's so powerful because it takes the blame away. I'm just telling you, this is a story I'm telling myself right now, that I'm not important because you didn't call me. But, with the little ones, it's more, well, I feel sad, or I feel this when this happened. And like I said, we can't control what the other person does, but it's helping them to articulate how they feel and take ownership. And it does help in those, in those friendship conflict, even, using it for yourself with a partner. Just take that as a challenge and just tell your partner, you never call me, you don't listen to me, you never hear what I have to say, versus, do you know what, the story I'm telling myself is that I'm not important to you right now because you're on your phone. That's a story I'm telling, because I can see that you're engrossed on your phone. That's a story I'm telling myself, that I'm not important. Granted, they'll be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. No, but that's not at all what's happening. And I think it's learning, how to do that.
I was going to ask you actually, or comment, but then you said it already, because I say to my children all the time, you cannot control what your friends are doing. You cannot control what other people are doing. The only thing you've got some control over is how you choose to react. And obviously, I say choose a bit lightly, because sometimes we lose it, don't we? So we feel like I didn't choose to lash out at you. But I think I say to my friends, no, because often they go, but she made me do, or she did that, and so so no, whatever they did happened. This is how you felt as a result of it, perhaps, but they didn't make you do anything. It's your choice how you respond to it.
Definitely. And I do teach, the circle of control, or for little ones, we talk about my power glasses. So the circle of control really is, out of my control I can't control people's words, actions, choices, the place of things, what people think about me, what they say about me. I can control my thoughts. So I can control my actions, whether I punch you in the face or whether I decide to use my power breathing to stay calm or walk away or take a drink of water or whatever. I can control my words to say something mean back, or actually to walk away and maybe go tell an adult or whatever that might be. So and to take that control doesn't feel easy. That feels hard. The easy thing is sometimes to lash out, you know, in the course that you do, we talk about the big feelings and the thinking brain and the feeling brain and all of that. But it's those understanding actually what is within my power, what can I control? And even in those concepts of like difficult friendships, let's say if you're on the receiving end of a nasty friendship, and I call them like, I don't like using the word toxic friendship, but if we're, you know, okay, so there's those toxic friendships where like I'm nice to you one day and then I'm not nice to you, and then, you know, I say nice things and then I'm like a little bit unkind and leave you out. I can't be in control of what that person does, but I am in control whether I still choose to hang out with them, or I can slowly start to choose to make new friends. Now, how I make those friends might be difficult, and I might need to attend other clubs and things after school, because we spoke about it before this call, you know, how difficult it is in the school environment if you're stuck with the same cohort. But I don't have to be around you at playtime, you know, and as hard as that is, as hard as that is, I can choose to actually then go to the library and read a book at playtime, or choose to join another group of kids, or I don't have to. And also I don't have to listen to those things that you say to me about me, of I'm, you know, if your friend says, oh, you're so dumb, or you're so weird, whatever it is, you know, the kids might say, I don't have to take that on board. That's about you, you know. And I do teach this with children, that, you know, in that understanding, when people are mean, rude, unkind, it doesn't make it right. Don't get me wrong. It does not make it right. Nothing justifies that. But what I want them to understand is that when people are doing that, it's because they are in pain. They are either feeling afraid, they're insecure, they are not feeling good in themselves. And we might not know that. They might come to school with the biggest bravado. You're not going to know what goes on. But there is some reason why they are being mean or unkind. It's because they don't feel good. And the only way that they feel good then is to make someone else feel bad. And it's understanding that has got nothing to do with me. It's all about them. It comes down to insecurity. It comes down to, you know, many of the times I see with this, you know, it's the insecurity, it's the jealousy. They don't feel good enough in who they are. Because you're never going to get somebody that feels good in who they are, confident in who they are, bringing somebody else down. You know, and when I work with older kids, you know, we talk, I mean, I love Michelle Obama's, you know, that thing, you know, when they go low, we go high. Yeah. And, you know, there's that other phrase as well, you know, you'll never be brought down by somebody who is above you, you know. So, and thinking about that actually, okay, doesn't make it right what they're doing. And, you know, this happened with one of the girls I was working with. So she was new to a school, very pretty, attractive little girl, very bright, very outgoing. So she kind of ticked all the boxes, right, of being, you know, liked, friendly, smart. And she made friends with this girl at school, and this a girl she made friends with had previously been friends with another girl. And so basically this new smart little girl that came and kind of broke up that friendship dynamic. And so she was on the receiving end of this other girl's friend now that wasn't in the limelight. Totally understandable. But, you know, the things that were said to her were really mean and unkind. You know, a lot of comments about her height, a lot of comments about what she looked like. And it was painful. And that's actually why mum reached out, because it was when my daughter's slowly, you know, saying she's losing her voice, that she doesn't want to go to school. She doesn't want to have, you know, she doesn't want to be around friends. And so understanding that this little girl was in a lot of pain. And when we were able to do that, she actually started to change her tune in terms of including the other girl actually to come to play, even though she was mean. And I'm not saying you've got to be a bend over and, you know, I'm not saying that at all. But in that instance, it worked. Because she could actually have empathy for what this other girl had gone through. But in all of that, she still stood up for herself as well. And there were times that she said, actually, I'm not going to let you talk to me like that. And she was able to find her voice again. But, you know, it comes down to the choices that you know, what I choose to focus on. But that can be really difficult, though. I'm not saying that is easy. And these are ongoing conversations that we have with our children. And I think also, if they are in a situation where they are limited for friends, really beginning to explore, what are other options of friendships that they can start to nurture, to see that actually there are great friendships that they can make, and there are, good relationships that they can build that might not necessarily be in the school setting right now, but can we build their confidence in other settings?
Yeah, I love that. My coach, her name is Lindsay Caricati. She's fantastic, and I'll paraphrase because I can't remember exactly how she said it, but she said nobody has permission to make you feel anything less than unless you kind of allow it. And exactly. I think it's easier said than done, and we're still learning that as grown-ups, I think. But having this idea of, I have value, and your words, I will not allow them to totally make me feel anything that isn't the way I feel about myself, so it's only with your permission that I'm going to feel bad about whatever you're telling me.
Yeah. And one of the things that I do teach kids, and I even do this with teens, but it works on little ones, is imagining you're in this magic bubble. And in that magic bubble, you allowed the words and, the feedback from the people that you love. So your mom, your dad, brothers and sisters sometimes, because they can also sometimes be on the other, be really mean and unkind.
Oh gosh, definitely.
But into that bubble comes the people that we love, that we trust. The outside of that bubble, if it is this person at school being mean or unkind, imagine that just kind of, springing back off the bubble. And even then saying, if you receive a negative comment of like, oh, you're so weird, or you're the, this girl that I was working with, one of the comments she received is, oh, what's the weather like down there, as if making reference to a height, because she was a lot short. I was like, that's mean. That's really cutting. And she said, and so we just, it's just saying, thanks for sharing. I'm not going to let that in. Yeah. And just getting comfortable and role play with your children, role play with them, getting comfortable, just say, thanks for sharing. Because what does that do? If you're giving me criticism that I haven't asked for, and I just say, cool, thanks for sharing, I'm not giving you anything back to come back to. It's like a game of tennis, and one person walks off the court, and you can come back and say something like, okay, thanks for sharing, but I'm not apologizing. I'm not taking it on board. I'm just saying, thanks for your feedback. It's your feedback. It's not my feedback. It's on you. And even, I get kids to say, thanks for sharing, but I'm not going to let that in. And we walk away. And, a little girl that I worked with, we did a lot of fun with this role play, and she was like shouting it out at some point. She's like, thanks for sharing. I'm not letting it in.
I love that.
I think it's cool. You've said that, but I'm not going to let that in. I'm not going to let that come in.
Yeah. And even if you do let that come in, maybe not sharing it with that person, instead going to your parents afterwards and say, look, I did that. I still let some of it come in, but this is what I did about it. And can we talk about it?
Yeah. And that's where you have those conversations. Okay, but understanding again, she's put, the reason why people say the things that they do again, she's not in a good space. And, looking also at the evidence to prove that wrong. She says, I'm weird. Well, and that's another thing. I've worked with another girl, who was told she's weird. Okay, well, let's unpick that word a little bit. And what does weird mean? And actually got it to the point of, well, we actually use what I said, if we actually think of, understand, of course, it's not nice to be said that. And also she's a bit older. So we looked at the evolutionary aspect of when it's, you're rejected from a group. Hundreds of years ago, if we were rejected from our tribes, it meant death. So being part of a tribe, we're connected. We want to connect. But what is weird? My weird is different to your weird. It's not actually a very useful phrase, because what's weird, And also we then looked at, I just said, we spun it around. I said, well, let's see some people that she really admires, so she loves strong, independent women that, in history that have gone to achieve great things. But each of them had to stand out. Each of them had to be different. Each of them had to do things different. They couldn't be part of the crowd and get lost in the crowd. So now she's like, Mum emailed me to say she's actually embraced this term. She's like, it doesn't bother her at all, because she's like, I'm on to achieving great things now. Like, I'm doing fantastic things. And cool, you think I'm weird? Great, that actually just gives me more ammunition to do really good things. So that means I'm going to be remembered. That means I'm going to be doing really good things. I'm not going to get caught in the crowd. So I think, and we actually turned that word from weird into interesting. That was one thing that we did as well. But again, it's all about the other person. It's just telling you about them. It's not telling you about you.
This is so useful, because I'm just looking at the questions I wrote down from the parents that I asked about what friendship issues they're having at the moment, and I think that could be the answer to a lot of it. But I'll share a couple with you, because there's confidence issues here, and then there's friendship one, and this one is quite interesting. And somebody that I asked was saying that her child was stuck in the middle of two friends, and they kind of compete for her friendship. And then she's meant, and I've heard that from so many actually, and they make her feel bad if she's not giving one of them the attention all the time. And then that makes this person feel really sad, because obviously, this child is somebody who wants to have a lot of different friends, like you were saying, they're different ice cream flavors, right? And you can't always give your attention to one person, and then you're caught in this sort of vicious circle where you always have to apologize to your friends. But interestingly, on the other side, somebody said, because I asked in this larger group, and somebody said, one of those children sounds like my child. I know it's not, because they apparently knew each other, but she needs the reassurance from her friends to know that she's valued. So that's a tricky one, isn't it?
It is. I mean, and that all comes down to, different personality styles as well, which obviously, it's difficult for like kids to get into because they don't quite understand that. Again, I would say and obviously I don't quite know the age of these children, but I would say it's definitely that little girl that feels stuck in the middle. It is about helping her to stay that calm, centered self. And even then, is it that we have a conversation with our two friends and have an open conversation with them about, I love you and I love you, and these are the great things I admire about you, these are the great things that I admire about you. I have a lot of great friends. And this actually I took from one of the girls I'm working with at the moment. I don't want a best friend. I've got a lot of great friends. I don't do best friends. I do great friends, and great friends are friends that make me laugh, that make me feel good, that we can laugh about things, that help, they're there for me, they listen to my problems, and both of you do that. And so I want to have lots of great friends, and just like, and so I think having that open conversation and maybe supporting your daughter too. Okay, how do we structure this conversation a little bit? But I think what we don't want here is for her to apologize, is for her to hold back. And this just comes down to communication. This comes down to how we communicate. Now, this sounds very grown up, and of course, bringing down the language, but this is such a perfect opportunity for her to communicate effectively of what she wants, that she loves them. And why do I love them? I love you for this, I love you for this, I love you for this, I love you for this. And I also love to have lots of friends, because I think, it's really special to have lots of friends. So maybe even in writing a letter to her two friends and saying what she appreciates them, what she loves about them, but also what she likes. And that, she wants everybody to get along, and we want to be all a lot of great friends is one strategy. And just that sort of the energy that she goes around, it's hard though, because at school it's about best friends, it's about best friends. But I think, and so, it comes down to, letter writing I find is really powerful, because it gives the other person the opportunity to receive the message and to respond versus the reaction. And the person who's communicating the message, it gives them the opportunity to say what they are really feeling versus being caught up in those big emotions. And I think the overall tone of this message is that I value all my friendships. I really value you. This is not about competition. And maybe bring ice cream flavors, or I don't know, pizza flavors, or what cool drink flavors, whatever it is, chocolate flavors. It's like, you're like my galaxy and you're like my Mars bar. I can't choose. I love you both, using that. Yeah. But it's difficult, these, like I said, are lots of little conversations. And for the person that is quite clingy, I think for them it's about us as adults and as parents actually building up that self-confidence and self-esteem, having that same conversation with them, that you don't just want to rely on this one person to be your friend. You want to have lots of friends, and you need to rely on you. So it's about building her inner self-confidence and her self-esteem, and how can I start to be my own best friend?
Yes.
And that's something else that I do with kids too. It's not just about if you want a really good friend and friendship, let's write all of that down or draw that down. Okay, now you need to become that friend. you can't expect to get that friend if you are not that friend. You know, you need to become that friend. You need to be that friend. And so that's, you know, how we slowly start to build that, you know, that sense of self-confidence. And, you know, all, I mean, there's lots. We could probably have a whole day workshop on this.
Oh my gosh, this is, yeah, I could go on and on about this, because this also reminds me that I said to my daughter once, I said, like, have you listened to how you talk to yourself? You're supposed to be your own best friend. Would you say this to so and so? She's like, no, why? That'd be really mean. I'm like, yeah. And that's how you should treat yourself, as if you're that person that you really love. And saying those things to yourself are not gonna make you feel any better.
Exactly. It's a big bit, you know, the self-compassion, speaking to yourself like you would to your best friend. Definitely, that's a huge
and I think maybe that also, I mean, one of the other questions I got was like, if a child is being mean to you personally, or you know, the whole freezing out treatment that girls tend to do more than boys, how do you respond, and how do you kind of go and join an existing friendship group as an outsider? It's about kind of, I guess it comes back to also knowing that I don't need to listen to this, I don't need to let this in. Am I onto something?
Yeah, totally. I don't need to let this in. You know, this is on them. They are in a difficult space. It doesn't make it right, but it's not true. It's not true. This is about them. It really is. You know, when someone's being mean or unkind, it really is like they're holding a mirror up, saying what they feel inside. It's a reflection of them. It's not a reflection of you. Unless, of course, you've been mean or unkind, then obviously they're going to retaliate, you know. So, but I think what we're talking about here is that, so understanding that, but then, okay, how can I build my confidence? Who else can I go and meet? And then I also said, you know, with this girl that I'm working with in terms of making a great friend, same situation. She's in a threesome, kind of being frozen out sometimes, not all the time. So we're looking at how can we start to make friends in other capacities. So we spoke about who else in your class haven't you got to get to know yet? You might not think much about them, but who are you potentially interested in, or who is somebody that you'd have of interest? And all you're doing, you're not going to be a friend, you're just going to be interested. You're just going to break that ice a little bit, be interested, get to know them. Maybe there's a common thing that you do together. Maybe it's just that you're sitting with them. So in the case of this girl that I'm working with, she has one friend that she's got in one class, and they chat, but they never spend playtimes together. So all she's asked is, can I just come and sit with you at playtime? But she's part of a bigger group of friends. And all she's doing is she's just sitting. She's just listening in. She's just, you know, listening. She's not, and I said, you're not going to be in the conversation. You're not going to come away with a lot of friends. You're just interested to make a potential friend, and from that potential friend you build a more solid friendship. And from that friendship it becomes a greater friend if you nurture it, if it's the right kind of friendship. But it is also about, I think, you know, becoming that friend that you want to have. And if those scenarios aren't available at school, okay, can we make that available outside of school?
Yeah, that was going to be my question as well. And I also wonder whether when you step away and you go, I'm not going to let this in, whether you actually almost also get that person who's holding up the mirror to understand, hang on, I'm using this person who I actually love to make myself feel better, and I'm not getting what I want from it, and now I miss this person because they're actually a good friend. So maybe, I don't know if that's your experience as well, but maybe actually you reacting like that might actually solve whatever is going on for them as well.
It could very well do. I mean, if they've got that emotional awareness and that support, it could be that they're in a lot of pain, and, you know, because if we're, you know, and not getting that, I think there's that as well. But it could be, you know, it absolutely could, definitely.
I want you to share with us before we wrap up the different, because I'm about to melt where I'm sat. It's so warm. I'm just looking up my laptop and it says 30 degrees and it's like just 11 o'clock. Oh gosh. But and that this is inside an old house. It's probably 35 where I'm sat. What courses do you currently offer? Because I think your courses are really great. The ones I've looked at so far, because they are you don't, a lot of the bigger, no, not the bigger ones, the smaller ones, they're very good value for money as well. You don't have to fork out an awful lot of money, and there's a lot of value in them. But you look at different things. So what if I think about well, actually any age, what kind of courses do you currently run?
So the ones that are there available to get now is there is one on friendships, so navigating friendships with ease, I think it's called Navigating Tricky Friendships with Ease, and that is specifically around tricky friendships, how to stand up for myself, how to find my voice, why people respond the way that they do, I think we touch on how to work through my own big feelings a little bit as well, because that's always important, because when those big feelings come up, we go into fight or flight. So what can I do to come back to calm? And that's for majority of my courses, well, actually all my courses are for primary aged children. However, in saying that, navigating friendship wobbles, definitely I say, if you've got a child maybe who's 5 or 6, they will need some adult support. So sit with them and go through it with them. Whereas, older kids could probably go through it independently. And that is a pre-recorded session where I delivered a live class online. So you'll actually see or hear me talk about feedback that other kids have said, which I think is really powerful, because your child then sees, actually, that boy on the call said he felt like nobody liked him. That boy on the call said he felt rejected, or whatever it was that they gave me. So, and that's feedback that I've received from parents who've said, actually, my child feels less alone now that we've done this, because they saw the feed, they kind of heard the feedback from the other kids. The other courses that I've got is how to manage the worry. So that's a lot around understanding worry, those negative thoughts that get in the way. Obviously, touches on building self-confidence and self-esteem, and really how to reframe some of that negative chatter. And then we've also got how to manage big feelings, which I think is the one that you're doing, yes. Understanding why we have those big feelings, what's happening in our brain, what happens when our big feelings take over, and then what we can do to take our power back. Yeah. So those are the ones that I've got at the moment. I am going to be doing one which will be pre-recorded though, but it will be back to school and feeling cool. So a lot around back to school with confidence, that will come out at the end of August, that parents can get as well, just in terms of navigating change and transition, those in back to school worries and back to school anxieties, and those sort of things. So yeah, that's in the pipeline at the moment.
Fab. And where can people find that? Is it all on your website?
Yeah, so the courses are on my website. Actually, yeah, the friendship one, mind you, the friendship one, I've only got a link on it on my Instagram at the moment. So actually, that's a good one to actually put it up on my website. But yeah, on my website, or get in touch with me, and obviously my Instagram as well, yep. Power Thoughts NC. You can get all my information there as well.
Fab. I'll put that all in the show notes so people can look you up there. I was going to say, actually, because I pointed before we started recording, I pointed up here where you see a little helicopter. It's like a Lego helicopter. And I think, and it reminded me, it's very random that it's there. I'm in my daughter's bedroom, my youngest daughter, and because helicopter parents came up. And I think that the powerful thing about your courses is that children do them, and with the help of adults, you do them together, because I think so often we as parents, we just want to be in every arena of a child's life. We want to take over and we want to solve things for them. And certainly me, in even just a few months ago, I'd be like, okay, messaging the other mum going, oh, this has just happened, what do you reckon? And they're really good friends, what should we do? Whereas now, one thing that I've learned is that this is my child's learning experience, and if I take that away from them, what learning, I've got a book here, it will take me ages to find it in here, but it's called Sometimes We Win, Sometimes We Learn. And I think, what am I taking away from my children by not letting them have the experience? So I guess empowering them through, for example, one of your courses, to have the tools readily available, and then almost not stepping back, and not like completely stepping back and going, well, you're on your own, kid, but just letting them have the experience, because otherwise they'll become adults and they will have no idea of how to deal with any of this.
And it is about sitting in those difficult emotions and validating it, really being a mirror for those emotions, saying, you know what, buddy, this is tough right now. I get it. This is really painful when friends don't want to play with us. I know it. It's okay. I'm right here. I'm sorry. I'm right here. I love you. You're not fixing it. You're not taking it away. You're not telling them to get over it. You're just holding space for that. Because how else are they going to learn how to deal with rejection if they don't learn to deal with it? And we're all rejected in some form or capacity, wherever that is, and the disappointment, and allowing them to sit in that feeling. And obviously that will vary from time to time what it is. And sometimes even, you tried really hard to get into that football team and you didn't get it. Like, this is like, it's okay. Sometimes I call them like my wallow days. I'm just going to sit here and feel really sorry for myself and like just get it out. But then there's also, okay, do you know what? We now need to take our power back. And you'll know as well, like, we need to now take our power back. How can we take it back? What can you learn from this? What can you do differently? What can you do the next time? How can we solve this problem? you know, not me, how can we solve this? What do you think we can do to solve this problem? And even in some situations, you know, I'm right here with you as you solve this. I'm right here with you.
Yeah.
And that can be really, really difficult. So yeah, that's a tip as well.
No, I think that's great. My daughter had to choose people she wanted to be with next year for when they changed their classes up. She's in a bit of a bigger school, and she was like, "Mommy, it was the hardest thing, and it was awful, and all the rest of it, and I'm not sure I've done the right thing, and all of these things." And normally I would have been like, okay, so but do you want to go to tell the teacher tomorrow? You know, and instead I said, you know what, I hear you. I hear you. That is so hard.
Yeah.
And she said, did you ever have to do it? And I said, yeah. And I was thinking also that I had maybe made the right choices, and I found it really hard. And just I just saw her whole face going, okay, mommy's been through this. She's also had to do it. She's not this person who just does everything right or finds things easy. So I think that is so powerful. So just thank you for everything that you're providing for the children, because I think it's so spot on. As I said, I've had so many people come to me, and I sent one of your Instagram messages, and they're so clear, and they go, oh my gosh, she's talking to my child.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear. I'm so good to hear. Yeah, I need to get I've been a bit quiet on there. I've not been as active as what I wanted to, just because of all the other work stuff that's been going on, but that's good to hear. That's good to hear. No, and thank you as well for all your support, and I'm really glad that we could have had this chat today. So
yes, it was so good. Thank you so much for your time. And as I said, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, I'll put all the details on how to get in touch with you on the show notes. I could really recommend the course we're doing at the moment, how to manage your big feelings. It is so good. So thank you so much, Natalie, for being on today. And let's find a fan or some air conditioning somewhere, hey?
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna go back in the shower. Well, I've got a call coming up, but I'm gonna get back in the shower.
Run in the shower first. Thank you so much. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
You've been listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show with Mari Craig. I am passionate about helping mums get their energy back through simple nutritional changes, because we know that if mummy is happy, the family is happy. If you would like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram under @smallstepstowellness, or visit my website smallstepstowellness.info. Speak to you soon.